The monsters weren't hunting Victor. They were protecting him. That sounds impossible. Victor spent his entire life hiding from them. He ran, he hid in trees, he slept in abandoned trucks, and somehow he survived for almost 40 years. Everyone else died. Families disappeared overnight. Entire groups were wiped out. But Victor remained alive. Ask yourself one question.
Why?
If these creatures can smell fear, surround houses, set perfect traps, and patiently wait for the right moment to kill, then how did one frightened child survive decade after decade without making a single fatal mistake? Luck doesn't last 40 years, but permission does. And that changes everything. Because maybe Victor wasn't ignored because he was good at hiding. Maybe he was never meant to die. And if that's true, then every time we watch the monsters walk past him, every time they chose another victim instead, every time Victor escaped when no one else could, we weren't watching luck. We were watching a rule the show has never explained. But here's what changes everything. The real mystery isn't why Victor survived. The real mystery is who wanted him alive. For years, most fans have accepted the same explanation. Victor knew the town better than anyone else. He memorized hiding places. He understood the monsters. He stayed quiet. He never took unnecessary risks. That sounds reasonable. Until you actually look at what the show is telling us. Victor wasn't just surviving. He was moving through places where nobody should have survived. Think about it carefully. As a child, Victor was completely alone after the massacre. No parents. No adults. No food supply. No protection. No talismans. No safe colony house. Nothing. The monsters owned every night. One mistake should have ended everything. One cough, one wrong turn, one moment of panic. Yet somehow, the deadliest predators in this universe never caught the easiest target they ever had. A terrified little boy. That's not normal. That's impossible. And impossible events are exactly where From hides its biggest truths. Look at what the show is actually telling us. These monsters are incredibly patient. They don't rush. They enjoy psychological games more than simple killing. They smile. They manipulate. They learn people's names. They pretend to be loved ones. They wait outside windows for hours just to break someone's mind before attacking. They don't kill randomly. Every kill feels intentional. Every victim serves a purpose. Which means every survivor probably serves one too. This is the detail everyone missed. Victor isn't just someone the monsters failed to catch. He's someone they repeatedly chose not to kill. Those are two completely different ideas. And this is where it gets darker. Think back to every encounter Victor has with the creatures. How often do we actually see them aggressively chasing him? Very rarely. Instead, something strange keeps happening. Victor slips away. Victor walks through dangerous places. Victor reaches locations before anyone else. Victor somehow keeps existing inside the monster's territory, as if invisible. Almost like there are rules neither side is allowed to break. Now compare that with everyone else. When newcomers arrive, the monsters immediately begin testing them. They isolate people. They manipulate emotions. They attack families. They exploit fear. Within days, someone usually dies. The newcomers become part of the cycle almost immediately. Victor never did. It's almost as if he exists outside the game's normal rules. And if you've watched From closely, you already know something important. The town loves rules. The faraway trees don't work randomly. The bottle tree follows patterns. The music box follows patterns. The cicadas follow patterns. Even the boy in white appears according to patterns. Nothing supernatural in this world is completely chaotic. Everything operates under hidden systems. So why do fans assume Victor's survival is the only exception? Maybe it isn't an exception at all. Maybe it's one of the oldest rules in the town. Let's go back to the night everything changed. Victor's childhood massacre. This event shaped the entire story before the Matthews family ever arrived. We know almost everyone died. We know Christopher changed. We know Miranda desperately tried to save the children. We know the boy in white appeared. But after that night, Victor remained. Not just alive. Untouched. That single fact should bother us more than anything else in the series. Because predators don't accidentally leave behind witnesses. Unless the witness is more valuable alive than dead. Think about predators in nature. Sometimes they don't kill immediately because the prey serves another purpose. It leads them somewhere. It attracts others. It keeps the cycle going. What if Victor became exactly that? Not prey. A living piece of the system. A memory keeper. Someone whose survival ensured the story could never truly end. Suddenly his drawings feel different. His collections feel different. His obsession with remembering feels different. For years we've believed Victor was drawing pictures simply because trauma damaged his memory. But what if the town needed someone to remember? What if forgetting was the real danger? And Victor became the town's living archive without ever realizing it? Because every generation arrives confused. Every generation dies. Every generation loses its history. Except Victor. Victor remembers. Not perfectly, but enough. Enough to keep fragments alive. Enough to preserve symbols. Enough to carry stories from one cycle into the next. And that's exactly why killing him would have been a mistake. Because if Victor dies, the town loses its memory. And if the town loses its memory, maybe the cycle itself begins to break. But that's only the beginning of this theory. Because once you realize Victor may have been intentionally preserved, another terrifying question appears. Who created that rule? The monsters? Or something far more powerful controlling them? If Victor was intentionally kept alive, then we have to ask the question that almost no one is asking. Who made that decision? Because the monsters don't behave like wild animals. They behave like employees. Think about every attack we've seen across the series. The creatures have countless opportunities to kill people immediately. Yet they rarely do. They smile. They talk. They manipulate. They wait for someone to make a mistake. They almost seem to enjoy stretching out the fear. Most fans believe that's because they're cruel. But look closer. Cruelty doesn't explain consistency. Rules do. The monsters never feel out of control. They arrive at night. They disappear before daylight. They never simply choose to ignore those limits. Even when they have the advantage, they obey the same routine over and over again. That tells us something important. Something is controlling their behavior. And if something can tell them when to hunt, it can also tell them who not to hunt. But here's what changes everything. Victor isn't the only clue. The boy in white has been standing right in front of the answer since the beginning. Every time the boy in white appears, the story shifts direction. He never wastes words. He never explains everything. He gives just enough information to move someone toward a specific outcome. That isn't random guidance. It's management. Look at what the show is actually telling us. The boy in white knew Victor as a child. He stayed connected to him longer than anyone else. He appeared during the massacre. He appeared again when Ethan arrived. He appeared before major turning points. Almost as if he has been monitoring the same cycle for decades. Now connect those dots. If the boy in white wanted Victor alive, and the monsters never killed Victor, then maybe those two facts are connected. We've always treated the boy in white and the monsters as opposite forces. Good versus evil. Protector versus predator. But what if that's the illusion? What if both are trapped inside the same system? And this is where it gets darker. Imagine a prison. The guards aren't free. The prisoners aren't free. Even the warden follows orders from someone higher. That's exactly how From feels. The monsters don't create the game. They enforce it. The boy in white doesn't control the game. He tries to guide people through it. And somewhere above both of them, something else is writing the rules. Suddenly Victor's survival stops looking like mercy. It starts looking like administration. Someone marked him as untouchable. Not forever. Just until his role was complete. This is the detail everyone missed. Victor never acts like someone trying to escape forever. He acts like someone trying to preserve something. His drawings aren't just memories. They're records. He hides objects that seem meaningless. He remembers locations no one else notices. He pays attention to symbols everyone ignores.
Why?
Because trauma alone doesn't explain that behavior. Trauma makes people forget. Victor spends his entire life fighting to remember. That difference matters. Think about the suitcase. Think about the lunchbox. Think about the old photographs. Think about the personal belongings he refuses to throw away. Most viewers see a broken man holding on to the past. But what if those objects have another purpose? What if they're anchors? Evidence that every cycle was real. Evidence that the town keeps trying to erase. Because memory is dangerous. Every horror story has one thing in common. The monster wins when people forget. Forget the rules. Forget the warning signs. Forget what happened before. Then history repeats itself. But Victor never completely forgets. Even when he struggles to explain something, he still protects pieces of the truth. Almost instinctively. It's as if some part of him knows these memories are more valuable than his own life. Now think about Christopher. Christopher is one of the biggest mysteries in the series. Everyone focuses on what happened to him. Very few people ask what happened after him. Christopher's collapse seems to trigger the massacre. Victor survives. The boy in white appears. The town resets. That sequence feels deliberate. Almost engineered. Christopher loses hope. Victor keeps memory alive. A new cycle begins. That pattern feels too clean to be coincidence. And here's another strange detail. The monsters rarely appear interested in Victor's drawings.
Why?
If those drawings contain clues, wouldn't destroying them be the smartest move? Unless they're not allowed to, because those memories are supposed to survive. Not for Victor. For the next group. Think about Ethan. Why does Ethan connect with Victor so quickly? Why does the story constantly place them together? Because Ethan isn't replacing Boyd. He's replacing Victor. The next child. The next witness. The next keeper of memory. Suddenly Victor's entire life looks like training. Not training to fight. Training to remember. Every strange conversation with Ethan suddenly feels intentional. Every story. Every drawing. Every warning. Victor isn't simply sharing his past. He's passing down a responsibility. And if that's true, then Victor staying alive for 40 years wasn't the reward. It was the burden. He wasn't spared because he was special. He was spared because someone had to carry the town's memories until another keeper was ready. But that creates an even more terrifying possibility. Because if Ethan really is becoming the next keeper, then Victor's protection may already be coming to an end. And if the system no longer needs him, what happens when the monsters finally receive permission to finish the job? Everything we've uncovered points toward one terrifying conclusion. Victor did not survive because he escaped the monsters. He survived because the monsters were never his greatest threat. The real power in from has always been the system itself. And once you start looking at the story through that lens, dozens of mysteries suddenly fall into place. Think about how the town behaves. It doesn't simply trap people. It studies them. Every arrival feels perfectly timed. Every tragedy pushes someone toward a specific emotional breaking point. Families are separated. Leaders are tested. Hope rises just enough before it is crushed again. That isn't random horror. It's controlled pressure. Almost like an experiment that has been running for generations. But here's what changes everything. Every experiment needs records. Every cycle needs continuity. Someone has to remember what happened before, even if everyone else dies. And that someone was Victor. For 40 years, he carried pieces of every failed cycle without even realizing it. His drawings weren't just coping mechanisms. They were evidence. His stories weren't just childhood memories. They were warnings. His strange behavior wasn't simply the result of trauma. It was the result of carrying information no human mind was ever meant to hold. Look at what the show is actually telling us. Victor constantly says things like, "I forgot," or "I just remembered." Most viewers see that as memory loss. But what if it's something far stranger? What if those memories are being hidden from him? Almost like the town only allows him to remember certain things when the time is right. Notice the pattern. Critical memories don't return when Victor wants them. They return when the story needs them. That's a huge difference. It's almost as if someone is unlocking pieces of his mind one chapter at a time. If that's true, then Victor isn't just preserving history. He's carrying a locked archive. And someone else controls the key. And this is where it gets darker. Think back to every major revelation in From. The answers never come through force. They come through memory. A forgotten conversation. An old photograph. A drawing. A dream. A nursery rhyme. A symbol carved into wood. Again and again, the story tells us that memory is more powerful than strength. That's not an accident. It's the show's biggest theme. Because memory is the only thing the town cannot completely destroy. It can kill people. It can trap families. It can create monsters. But if the truth survives, the cycle is still vulnerable. Now look at Ethan. From the moment he arrived, the boy in white began guiding him. Just like Victor. He understands stories in ways adults don't. He notices patterns others ignore. He asks the questions everyone else avoids. At first, this looked like simple innocence. Now it looks like preparation. Victor wasn't the final keeper. He was the bridge. Everything he preserved was meant to reach Ethan. His stories, his drawings, his warnings, even his fear. None of it was wasted. It was an inheritance. And suddenly, Victor's greatest line takes on a completely different meaning. Whenever he tells people that some things must be remembered exactly as they happened, he isn't speaking as a frightened survivor. He's speaking as the last librarian of a dying world. Someone who knows that if even one important memory disappears, the next cycle starts completely blind. This is the detail everyone missed. The monsters almost never seem interested in destroying history. They destroy people. But history survives. Photographs remain. Objects remain. Drawings remain. Victor remains.
Why?
Because the system doesn't want every trace erased. It wants just enough information to survive. Enough hope to keep the game going. Enough mystery to make the next generation search for answers. That balance is what keeps the cycle alive. Too much knowledge would destroy the experiment. Too little knowledge would end it. Victor became the perfect middle ground. He remembered enough to guide others, but never enough to escape the system himself. That may be the cruelest punishment in the entire series. Imagine spending 40 years protecting pieces of a puzzle you can never fully solve. Watching people arrive. Watching them die. Trying to warn them with memories you don't completely understand. Knowing the truth is somewhere inside your own mind, but never being able to reach it. That isn't survival. That's imprisonment. And maybe that's why Victor has always felt older than everyone else. Not because of his age. Because he's been carrying the weight of multiple generations. Every death. Every mistake. Every failed attempt to break the cycle. He's lived through them all. Not physically, but emotionally. So perhaps the title of this theory isn't entirely correct. Maybe the monsters didn't ignore Victor for 40 years. Maybe they were following orders. Orders written by something older than the monsters. Something that understands the town far better than they ever could. Because if Victor was truly the keeper of memory, then his survival was never an act of mercy. It was a necessity. But now the story is changing. Ethan is growing older. New secrets are being uncovered. The town is behaving differently. And if the next keeper is finally ready, then the one rule that protected Victor for 40 years may no longer exist. Which means the most dangerous night of Victor's life may not be behind him. It may still be waiting. Because if the system no longer needs its keeper of memories, will the monsters finally come for Victor? Or will Victor remember the one truth the town has been trying to hide all along?